Sometimes it still amazes me that we came so far with our home on wheels with such little time available. These places feel ancient and mystical, as straight out of a fairy tale. But it's a dark fairy tale, where this forgotten world keeps collapsing day by day, where ancient towers are still keeping watch over the land's borders, where all pagan gods are the neighbors of the Christian saints, and the cows live free and happy, like they are the ones really ruling the earth. Georgia has been beautiful, heartbreaking, challenging, but most of all, life-changing. The greatest Caucasus, crossland of people, languages, and cultures. A place rich in myths and traditions, with beautiful valleys and wild tracks. Svaneti, with its big, powerful rivers and its high peaks with ancient glaciers, has gifted us with our first impression of the Caucasian range. This region used to be one of the most traditional and remote of Georgia, but we found that opening so much to tourism, it's now losing its uniqueness. Our first track brought us from the medieval village of Mestia to the magical view of the Kuruldi Lakes. From there, you can hike to a ridge and admire Mount Ushva and its massive glaciers. This track is haunted by hikers and many tourists in rented off-road cars. We found many deep routes, steep and narrow sections, and the constant passage of vehicles made it more challenging than expected. But the view didn't disappoint at all. Not far from the village of Ushkuli, we found a wild camping spot with a stunning view. Mount Shkara, Georgia's highest peak, and its huge glaciers felt truly magical. There, we met other travelers with whom we'll share a few days of our journey. The next morning, we headed to the Latpari Pass, a route that crosses the Svaneti range and offers beautiful views of the mountains and glaciers of the region. We shared the path with Shaheen, a Kuwaiti man traveling from Dubai. western Greatest Caucasus, there are some tracks that bring you to the heart of the Russian mountains, close to the Russian and South Ossetian border in disputed territories. They require special permits from the border police in the city of Oni. These mountains are less majestic than the peaks of a neighboring Svaneti, but they are wilder and more remote, sometimes even muddier. The route to Mamizoni Pass starts from Shovi, a little town that is now abandoned and devastated by a massive mudslide in 2023. Saved from this dire fate, but not from the consequences of the abandonment, we saw what is left of Stalin's summer house. The route was wild and a bit challenging because of some narrow and muddy section. We had to be very careful because there was the risk of flipping the car into the cliffs. At the end of the trek, we found a small military checkpoint with a beautiful view of the valley, and on the other side, the so-called Mamizoni Pass, where we could see the Russian base even from such distance.
I'm okay.
Perfect.
I put a stone and I'm okay.
On our way back, we found a camping spot just in time as it started raining a lot. There, we were joined by a Polish couple from Netherlands we met near Rushkuli, Dominika and Tomek. The next day, we all joined together to explore the other routes of the Russian mountains.
You want to see Stalin house?
On the right.
After hours of rain, mud is not the worst thing you have to worry about in Georgia. The next day, we found that the road we had come from the day before was blocked by a muddy landslide, and we had to find a way around. Considering the weather, we had to decide what our next destination would have been, as we could face the risk of finding mud and other difficult conditions on the other restricted routes of the area. Would we be brave enough to dare? Well, wasting a day was not an option.
Sarah, tell him to slow down. Tell him not to enjoy.
When you want to
He
stop,
doesn't
just
listen to
tell
me.
me.
I thought I am fast, but he's faster.
I
keep the
know.
drone
That is-
time for when we
I
go
see like
higher up.
Viewpoint,
I like the
stop.
open space.
Mine, we stop at the mine.
As we were not going on our own, we felt confident that we could manage any potential difficulty altogether. So we headed to the next restricted tracks, Gibi and Notsara Pass.
What's happening?
We had no idea what the normal condition of this road would have been, but surely this was unexpected also for the locals.
Yalla, yalla.
Happy to be on the other side. Very happy to be here.
After the first river crossing, before the trek even started, we didn't know what to expect, as these routes are not touristy and hence not well maintained. We came across some very reddish water coming from an old abandoned copper cave, and we decided to stop by.
No gold. No gold.
No, it's mud. It's so sad.
Now you can go.
Dude, but just put the other feet inside and go.
We didn't drove very far that we had to stop for another inconvenience.
Oh, my husband is nicely walking.
Yes. David says that the track is blocked by a tree.
It's blocked.
So we cannot go.
No.
No.
Okay. Nice. We have to turn back.
Yeah. But you know what it means? Number 4 or 3.
Oh yeah, level 4.
We'll go from up.
Another road. I don't know
No,
where
they will
it brings.
meet.
There was another way to go through the Shivshuri Valley. It was narrow, but except for some river crossing, it wasn't difficult, and we reached the military checkpoint quite easily. Not far from there, next to a river, we spent lunchtime sharing memories and experiences. People from all over the world, from different cultures, with the same passion for nature and off-roading. We had so many lovely moments together.
Another landslide. Huge. Lot of rocks.
On the way to Notsara Pass, the rain caused a big rocky landslide. Rocks were sliding down, the cars were tilting. This situation required some cut and fill skills before we were able to cross safely. We found sections with deep roots, mud, sharp rocks, and we were glad that the weather was nice.
That's it. Go. Hold the wheel. Come. 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 Now here. Yes, go here. More. Wait. Go. Go! Straight! Straight, حبيبي! Go! Now a little bit right. That enough. Go! Давай! Vamos!
Sakannelas mikleba dami vekanevi Tmevi gashli vada karshi priale Sakannela driale Tahi sevdriale Er tiori sami içinde biyan Eşçemi suflis kızebiyan
On the top, the landscape was amazing. We had a great view over another impressive glacier. We were enjoying every detail of it. Until a thunder came from the mountains on our back. We were so distracted from the beauty in front of us that we didn't notice the fast, dark clouds approaching behind us, bringing rain and troubles.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you want to stop for a pictures, I stop.
Go, go.
Very slippery section. Too risky with this weather condition.
Go, go, more. More. Bravo. Go, left, now left, yes, left, yes. Now straight, yes, bravo. Go straight. Yalla, perfect, straight line.
Fuck yeah. You have the...
Slowly!
Go. So, now.
More. Okay. Yalla, come straight, slowly. Yes, now turn. Go.
Stop.
The day was long and intense. We laughed, we had fun, but we faced also many risks and challenges. We needed rest and the quiet sound of the nature around us. The next day, we'll say goodbye to the Swal Mountains, heading east. Afar come by a lake. We honestly couldn't think of a better way to spend our last night together, the five of us.
I give you a better instrument.
The Valley of Roshka is home to magnificent natural scenery, with green slopes and erratic boulders delivered by an ancient glacier. They are quite small, but among the greatest erratic blocks in the world. They are also located not too far from the colorful Abu Delauri lakes, hidden among rocky hills. The Blue Lakes are particularly beautiful, but we were left breathless by the White Lake, overshadowed by an impressive glacier surrounded by misty clouds. These lakes and valley are linked to Georgian myths, tales about animal sacrifices, evil giants, and powerful creatures sent by God to protect the people of Georgia. Even nowadays, some of these eastern valleys are keeping alive pagan deities and folklore that have been combined with Christian traditions, surviving through the centuries. Assa Valley is in the heart of the Kevsur Mountains, so remote that it doesn't see many tourists, and it's home of some pagan sanctuaries that women aren't allowed to approach according to local traditions. The trek to this remote valley brings you to the Arkoti Pass at almost 3,000 meters. The weather condition on that day turned the landscape and the trek even more mystical and incredible. Mountains made of green velvet, fragile rocks, wildflowers, and rivers. This is the landscape offered by Datvisjari Pass.
Bindis peria sopeli tandatan upro bindeba Nari chveni sitsotskhale chitivid gaguprindeba.
This track, also part of the Kivsurite region, leads you to the borders with Chechnya, crossing narrow gorges and amazing ancient fortresses. This area was indeed the most protected place in the eastern Greatest Caucasus, the first line of defense from any invaders coming from the north, and house of fierce and brave warriors. The fortified village of Mutso is impressive. Nested on the top of a steep, rocky hill, it really dominates the gorges and the track below it. Shatili is another relevant restored fortress that's instead hidden in the gorges. But it's another beauty of this place that feels straight out of a fairy tale.
Uccino e zamci a pulisiara
As we were driving on the Georgian military highway, seeing all the touristic buildings and the trucks waiting to cross the border, we really said it better be worth it. The entrance to the track to Truso Valley has left us a little bit suspicious, but it was also well promising. The track soon brought us to another impressive canyon, running beside the high walls of the gorge, the wild river screaming just below us. And then we arrived to the valley, with the most perfect light we could have ever hoped for. The golden hour was painting the valley with warmth and soft shadows. It was shining on the travertine and the red-colored stone next to a mineral water spring. Truso Valley was impressive, and it was saving other surprises for us in the morning. Zakagori Fortress, watching over the borders with South Ossetia. What do you think in the end? Was it worth it? It was then time for our last trek on the Greatest Caucasus, Abano Pass, a high-altitude mountain pass in Georgia, also known as the Death Road, for the many deadly incidents this trek has witnesses. It's an unpaved, unbarricaded road that climbs to nearly 3,000 meters, prone to landslides, rain, and mud. Driving with low gear is surely a good advantage while driving on this road, that is used by locals and tourists with normal cars, even with bad weather, as it's the only way to access by car the Tushiti National Park.
Com'è?
Bellissimo. Mi viene solo il dubbio se non scendere ancora un po'. Ciao! Meraviglia.
After crossing the village of Omalo, we headed to the more picturesque village of Dartlo at 2000 meters. Above it lie the ruins of Valvo, an ancient village. The national park has many interesting and historical villages, and you can spot watchtower in the most improbable places. Girevi is the last village we stopped by, as it's the last inhabited village of the valley. It's mostly populated by shepherds and soldiers. There are many ruins of towers overlooking the village and the valley, close to the border with Chechnya. On our way back, we stopped at the village of Parsma, that has some defense towers and also some pagan sanctuaries.
Women are not allowed to enter. Strano.
Coming back to cross Abano Pass, the weather didn't improve much, but we were lucky enough to drive all of it without any rain. The track is long, narrow, with many hairpin bends and waterfalls. It requires attention and awareness. It was breathtaking for me to drive it, but also because of the impressive landscape, and the contrast between the low clouds and the colorful wildflowers made it even more magical. With these last images in our eyes and heart, we said goodbye to the Caucasus, heading south. The Ridge of Shiraki, the lobby of Ashlovani National Park. On one side, the dark-colored fields and pastures of the valley. On the other side, the first view of the park, its landscape and canyons. Part of this track on the ridge sloped severely to the side, and this required us a lot of attention. Vaslovani National Park is a natural reserve that extends over 250 square kilometers, reaching the border with Azerbaijan. It's famous for its semi-desert landscape and the rich diversity of wildlife and plants. It requires a special permit for the park and another permit from the border police that will be verified at some military checkpoint inside the protected area. Vaslovani feels like Africa. Canyons of sand, rock and clay, savannas landscapes, arid steppes with wild animals. It was such a big surprise. We followed the track until Mijinskure, a small camp located next to the river that marks the border with Azerbaijan. We learned that there are tensions between the two countries, caused also by some disagreement over border management, so no one is allowed to camp or get too close to the borders, out of the official track of the park. Our camping spot was incredible. It was completely lonely, dark, and silent. We felt like we were the only living creatures on the planet, watched only by the shining lights in the sky above us. In the morning, the light was painting shadows and colors on the canyon surrounding us, and as soon as the birds began to sing, it was time for us to get back on track.
Quell'uccello così carino fa così tanto casino. Piano. Ok. Ok, ora piano col culo.
From Vaslovani, we connected to a route that brings you to another reserve called Kaguna. Here, the dry steppes and the lunar landscape leave places to green oases that looks like forests, close to the bank of the river. These trees are home to different varieties of birds and wild animals that rest under the shadows of the leaves. If we exclude the rangers of the reserves and the border police, we didn't meet anyone on these tracks. We almost felt like breaking the silence of those incredible places, where the only sounds were made by the wild birds and the wind. Following Yori River, the track leads you to the Hononimus Plateau. The landscape here is also semi-desertic, but the colors are totally different than the previous natural reserves. Yori Plateau is full of surprises. Mud volcanoes, incredible colors, amazing rock formations, and monasteries carved into the cliffs. We found the mud volcanoes on top of two different hills that stand out from the surrounding landscape for their particular colors. From above, they look like canvas with abstract paint stains. It's really beautiful.
ჩემი ფიქრი, ჩემი დარდი, შენი ყავი ერთადერთო, როცა გულში მაისიდა, სიყვარულის ცეცხლი გვენთო, რა ყოფილა სიჯაბუკე, ჩემო კარგო ხვდები უკვე, ეს დილებია სიყვარულისა.
After crossing a narrow bridge, we entered the green area near the river Yori, which is a flood risk zone and, in case of rain, it can become very muddy.
È fango?
Questo ho capito. Qua praticamente 4 persone sul gruppo Overland Georgia sono rimaste piantate.
Ecco.
Però festeggiate. Io odio il fango.
Ci sono le rane anche qui.
Forza. Guarda che qui l'hanno già tagliati.
Ok. No, vai. Solo ramettini.
We found then a short loop track that brings you to the so-called Badlands, with hills sculpted by wind and water. This area is really impressive at sunset, that paints the rock with beautiful colors. The next morning, we approached the ridges where, from the 6th century, many monasteries had been carved in the fragile rock. Erosion and time have exposed and destroyed part of these complexes and the frescoes they were protecting. The many colors of the Rainbow Hills are made up of many layers of clay and sandstone. Another beautiful painting of the greatest artist we know, Mother Earth. Totally different from anything else we encountered so far. Our last destination on these tracks were 2 other carved monasteries of the area, back among people after many days all by ourselves, as these religious places aren't abandoned but still used and lived by monks.
Ciao! Ciao, Maradona!
Our path brought us to the region of Javakheti, the Georgian Siberia, an area with harsh climate, with extincted volcanoes, lakes, and megalithic ruins. Paravani is the largest lake of Georgia, nested at 2,000 meters in the middle of a desolate landscape, surrounded by small fishing villages and green hills. Not far from the lake, the ruins of the megalithic fortress of Shaori, built more than 4,000 years ago, dominate the surrounding steppes. The route heads to a small lake hidden between the rocky peaks, but the trek is not an easy one. It's sometimes very visible, remote, with steep slopes, sharp rocks, mud if the weather brings rain. As you get closer to the lake, the volcanic rock becomes bigger and sharper.
Ok, adesso ruota un po' a sinistra. Ancora. Dritto, dritto. A sinistra. Dritto, ruote dritte.
We were totally alone, full of uncertainties as big, dense clouds were chasing us from behind. We saw only few shepherds kilometers before.
Questo è un level 5. Bisogna capire. Madonna, questi sassi sono enormi.
In the end, we decided to get to Lake Levani by foot. Sometimes it's better to be safe than sorry because we wanted to finish a trek at all costs.
Lago Levani, 2600 metri, queste vette sono a 3000. Qui c'è Sara e questa è la pista estremamente difficile che avremmo dovuto fare per raggiungere il lago. Meno male che ci siamo fermati prima perché il ranger si è rialzato, ma non così tanto, e poi con la cellula avremmo avuto non pochi problemi su tutti questi sassi.
From Paravani Lake starts another trail that brings you to Mount Didi Abuli, an ancient volcano and the highest peak of the Lesser Caucasus. Not far from it, there is its little brother, Patara Abuli, that enshrine the ruins of another megalithic fortress. This ancient volcanic area didn't sell out all its surprises. By the end of the day, we headed to the Elias Subani Plateau, crossing fields and pastures. The soft sunset light has gifted us with an amazing view over the Mid-Kari Canyon. The cave complex of Vargia is one of the most famous historical sites in Georgia. Nested in the canyon, it stands as proud monuments of Georgian Golden Age, even after his partial destruction caused by an earthquake in the 13th century. The Church of the Dormition is surely the most impressive place of the complex, with beautiful frescoes that have survived through the centuries. The path leaves the gorges and leads to the volcanic Erusheti Plateau, a vast, wild golden area with just few small villages. In its simplicity, the view offered by this route were beautifully impressive. The canyon, seen from both sides, left us really speechless. Built on a steep hill, the ruins of a big fortress built in the 9th century watch over the stunning canyon in memory of Georgia's great past. This place, straight out of a fantasy movie, meant the end of this long, surprising trek, but it was also the last chapter of this journey.
Guarda le piastre, che cracca che hanno preso. Qua si sono quasi attaccate al braccio inferiore. Di qua c'è un gran bello spazio e hanno preso una botta gigante, infatti da davanti, se lo vedi, sono flesse rientrano verso destra. Sono fatte apposta.
We know that every tale comes to an end, and every end needs time to be processed, to be cherished. Georgia was truly a challenging adventure. It has put to test our vehicles, our experience, and our spirit. But it was more beautiful than we could have ever imagined, and has gifted us in so many ways that, months later, we still can find the right words to praise and honor it.
And the kids cry out.